Now, without further ado, welcome Nikita Twaalfhoven, Senior Product Manager at ELB Learning. Nikita, the webinar is yours.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, everybody. So thank you. And please feel free, as Kristen said, to go ahead and ask any questions at any point. I'll take some pauses here and there to address them, especially if they are relevant to the things that I'm currently showing you. As Kristen mentioned, this is going to be primarily a rehearsal product demo, but I will also be sharing some of the new AI toolkit features in order to facilitate what I'm doing in rehearsal. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So for those of you who are not familiar, Rehearsal. It is one of ELB's larger, very comprehensive coaching and feedback tools. We tend to be most popular for the asynchronous experience, usually using video and audio, but also screen recordings. And the intent of it is to pretty much use it in any way that would require your learners or your training content to be repeated or requiring any sort of feedback. So I have this little slide here that you guys can review. But since this is a product demo, I'm going to move on. The big reason why we're here today is to cover, like some of the major reasons why people use rehearsal and ways that I can hopefully help you leverage, those whys in the best way possible within our platform. There's a general summary here of a few items that people commonly tend to use the platform for. Skills practice covers communication and compliance, so pretty much anything that involves people speaking, people doing any kind of desk support, help support, call centers, sales enablement, and a lot of continuous learning opportunities, which would potentially be two-way conversations, manager and trainee, or any kind of employee growth, onboarding, etc. I was curious to hear if anyone here has any other use cases you'd like to share. And if you did, feel free to do so by typing it into the chat, because I will then possibly use your use case as the demo for today's video. So I'm just going to make sure that I can actually open up and see those. And then I am going to progress into how we're actually going to do this. So rehearsal, often the question that comes up from our clients is like, how do we maximize what we've got with rehearsal? Because rehearsal is a really powerful tool. It has a lot of options, different ways of using it. And if you're familiar with the product, you're probably less familiar with what I'm talking about. Our focus today is going to be on how you can generate and automate a lot of the uses within rehearsal. And so I did want to quickly touch up on the other two listed. So prepare. What I mean with prepare is that in order to get your training content into rehearsal, is highly recommended, like best practices are to go in and actually take what it is that you're trying to like achieve with rehearsal. Right? Like lots of people, you can come in and you can just start building stuff, but if you don't really have a plan, it makes it a little bit harder to define, especially to those who are helping you invest in the product, what the value is that you're able to provide with this tool. And so the prepare portion of working with rehearsal is really important. And often I would recommend for those of you who do not do this or haven't done this within the platform, is you can use AI tools to help you prepare to put content in the platform. Great examples are building assistants or just going straight into any of the large language model chats and, telling it like, hey, I need you to help me, walk through like what are my training goals? Like, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? What are the increments and the milestones that I'm looking to have? What are the key points I'm going to be assessing people on? How am I going to be assessing them? Is it going to be based through automation? Are you looking to have trainers work with you within rehearsal? Like, all of these questions are super important. And having those, at least some level of an understanding of what those are up front, will really help you get far in using the product and using it, consistently. So for those of you who do have a plan, right? My plan for today and my prepare is to show you these demonstrations, and I'm going to be a little bit, how do you call that? A little bit on the fly when it comes to the actual use cases. But that's only because I want to help show you guys how to implement your real world scenarios in rehearsal. So again, if you guys have any use cases that you would like to see for rehearsal and generated by me, please feel free to let us know in the chat, and then I can do so on your behalf. And then while I wait for that, I'm going to open up my products.
We have some very quiet people over here, Nikita. I'm not sure if they're all eating lunch and can't type, or if we have some AI bots just taking notes, but I did come up with maybe soft skill training for medical professionals, if that would work.
That would work.
Okay. And if anybody else has any other ideas, please put them in the chat right now.
I'm going to switch my screen. To my primary. All right. So for those of you who may or may not be familiar, Rehearsal is also integrated into ELB's The Learning Creation Studio. And upon login of the studio, this is what you would see typically. In my case, I have all of our tools available to me, and that's why there's so many tiles. But for those of you who don't use the studio, you would just go directly into Rehearsal. And again, your layout may look a little bit different than what you see here. As I mentioned within or on the presentation, the important aspects that I'm going to cover today with Rehearsal is how you can leverage AI tools, and thank you, Bob, by the way, for that suggestion. I will definitely implement that as well. How we're going to generate content for Rehearsal. So there are lots of tools out there, especially now with AI becoming more and more prevalent, and most of you may or may not be familiar with some tools. So if you do have recommendations, you're more than welcome to either post it in the chat or let us know. But I'm going to be primarily using our AI toolkit. It is in beta, so I apologize in advance if there are any typical AI quirks in terms of like how it responds. But so going into the studio, I'm going to go launch the AI toolkit. And here you kind of get an overview of what tools are available. For rehearsal's sake, I would say that probably the two most powerful tools that you could work with would be the AI avatar generator and the text rewriter. And I'll go into those specifically. But for a moment, I'm just actually going to go back and just give everyone a quick review of how Rehearsal actually works. So this is the view of what a learner typically sees within Rehearsal. Any assignments that you've created for them would be listed here, and you can see that here in my status is complete on this one. There is also leaderboard functionality and the ability for the users to go in and change their profiles. And as an admin or as a mentor, you would have access to what we call the admin side of the portal. And here is where all of your content gets created and generated. We do have the review tab here for mentors as well. Fundamentally within Rehearsal, I guess I just wanted to start from the top level, is that Rehearsal as a product is based on generating specific, and again, this is the most common use case, and we can talk about unique use cases at the end of this meeting if we have more time. But the most common use cases are to build out scenarios for the learners so that the learners can practice against those scenarios and do that within their own time and as many times as they would like. Like I think on average right now we're almost up to like 6 times on average that learners will reattempt their video submission before actually submitting it for assessment. And then doing that consistently as part of a greater learning journey. So we have a lot of new features and a lot of advanced older features that I will be touching up on in a minute, but I just wanted to, for general understanding, explain that to all of you if you're not familiar with Rehearsal. We can also walk into best practices of scenarios, but I will do that once I start going deeper into it. So that was generally speaking what a scenario is within Rehearsal, right? So it's something that a learner can practice against. It has specific criteria, and it can have specific advanced features such as gates and or analysis to assess the learners on. Now programs, you can imagine programs as like a series of scenarios which together make up a greater experience for the learner. Sometimes these programs are referred to, you can think about it as like the class or the content structure, right? You have each individual scenario, and each scenario is part of a greater piece of your training content. And so the program represents our technical implementation of what would be your training content. And so you can use programs for individual scenarios, or you can use programs in series of scenarios, especially those are really good to do when you're doing continuous learning journeys. Lastly, I'm not going to go into as much today, but the assignments are just our ability to tell learners, hey, you have this program assigned to you. Now go do it between these dates. And that's it. So just wanted to give you that overview, a high-level overview of Rehearsal before we start. So when we're working with training content, for example, Bob from the Netherlands brought up using communication skills for technical professionals. Like that is a very common use case within Rehearsal, and it's an excellent use case for our platform. And so what you would want to do, as I previously mentioned on the slides, is you want to make sure that you prepare in advance, like what are your training goals, all of the key points that you're planning to assess people on, and general idea of like what you're trying to strengthen and how you're planning to strengthen that. And we can either assist with that kind of conversation because we have like lots of services available to you, but also there are plenty of other services out there, including AI toolkits or AI large language models, which can assist with that as well, if you do not have that already. So in our use case, we're going to assume that we have certain communication skills. I'm going to identify, let's say, we're going to do legal compliance. So like being able to properly define to your users, like what are the things and aren't the things that you can talk about. Another example of communication pieces around, technical professionals is like how clearly can you talk to the product or products or whatever technical knowledge that they need to know. And being able to articulate or walk through certain scenarios, comfortably. So I think a good one to show you guys here will be the ability for a technical person to talk through their product specifications, and answer questions on those. I'm going to use, for simplicity, because I can make stuff up, but I wanted to show you how you could use the tools that we offer to help you build out your content by using the text rewriter tool in the AI toolkit. So I have the fun thing, by the way, about the AI toolkit, for those of you who have not had an opportunity to play with it, is it remembers what you're doing and you can reset it. But the nice thing about having it, listed there and remembered is that you can reuse aspects of responses that you may previously have gotten from the tool. As you can see here, I'd previously had it generate for me a sample client response, and then I had provided additional instructions to the AI to tell it, hey, look, I need you to pretend like you're a learner responding to this client's request. And it was able to, by elaborating, I use the elaboration function, write up a sample response, which I then converted into a response in Rehearsal. In your use case, in the use case of creating scenarios around technical understanding, right? The thing that we're going to be looking for here is having a level of example that the AI can use and very narrow instructions. So I will say in advance that there are times when you're using AI, and this applies to literally like 90% of the models out there. It's not always going to understand with 100% certainty what it is that you're trying to get out of it. And so by being really specific and by having as much, instruction as possible, you can really help guide the AI to behave in a certain way. And so for our use case of creating communication skills around technical responses, we can say that we want to have a scenario where a client is asking for more information on a certain product, right? So that could be a very simple step one scenario of introducing your technical professionals. Hey, this is your scenario. You've been prompted by a client to explain to them, like, how does this work on a higher level? And so we're going to want to simulate that. And that's what a scenario is fundamentally. So I'm going to write here, like, sorry, my spelling is not great. All right, so I'm going to be really general here. So my input content would be the actual piece of information that I'm trying to get the text rewriter to build out for me. And the specific use case that I'm, writing out for the instructions for this text rewriter is that I'm actually planning to reuse the response that it provides as the script for the next AI tool, which I will show you, which is the AI avatar generator. And so we'll see if this functions in the way that I hope. Again, it doesn't always respond. I will have to refine once I hit it. But so, right, like, this is generally speaking the information that I'm trying to get. and I'm asking it to rewrite this scenario as a conversation snippet, in other words, a script, which can be implemented as the transcript for a scenario. And we're going to try to elaborate this one first. So as you can see here, it gave us a script. This is a very general, how do you say that? Just a very general statement. So I'm going to add to the initial instructions to be a little bit more specific on the actual client's responses. And then we're going to try to elaborate again. And sometimes what I found also helps is by using the elaborated snippet, right? So now it's being a little bit more specific about its responses. And you can see if I copy that information and now use that information as the input content, I'm going to rewrite this as a summary. We're going to simplify. Okay, so unfortunately it didn't do the thing that I was hoping for it to do, which again can happen. But I would recommend just taking the pieces which like work for your use case, right? So I will use this piece and implementation and examples of successful implementations as a transcript for my AI avatar generator. So I went, for those of you who missed it, I went on the left-hand nav to the AI Toolkit's avatar generator, and I'm going to generate a scenario video. We're going to use one of the avatars, which, by the way, we are actively also creating more. And so I'm going to say, okay, I want this person to be my sample client. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to implement the various sentences. I could have also just copied this over to my notepad, but I realized I made a mistake. Apologies. So for context, I'm just copying over a few of the lines so that it's not only one sentence long. And then we're going to implement it in the AI avatar generator. So I've put together 3 sentences, which would potentially, be a good scenario for technical professionals to have to respond to within your organization. The variability is just how much leeway the AI has to actually use the text that you're given into the video. So I'm going to hit generate the audio. I don't actually know how this will come across in the webinar, but once it's done, it starts playing the audio immediately for you. So for those of you, I don't know, Kristen, can you tell me if you can hear this when I play it?
Right now, I cannot, but if you go up to the top, you should be able to share your audio.
I think for now, because it doesn't give me that option, I am just going to let you guys know that there is a person talking my script and that in fact there is audio playing, and it is a simulation of exactly what I wrote here in a woman's voice, because that was the avatar that we selected. So I'm going to hit next, and I can choose a background. And also a green screen for those of you who are a little bit more tech savvy and would like to use other tools to change the background to be something more realistic to your simulation. In this case, I'm just going to use like a random desk because it looks cool. And I'm going to hit generate. And so these videos can take a few minutes to generate. So what I'm going to do is while it's generating, right, you can see down here that it's processing. And what I will do is I'll show you guys a few examples in rehearsal, and I'll come back to here once it's done. So as you can see also in rehearsal, I've already gone ahead and used the AI avatar for various simulations. I would really like if the audio was working. I'm sad that we didn't test this. Here we go. Okay, tell me if you can hear this now.
I've called your support line multiple times.
Yes.
Cool. I found it. And so what I had done here is this was a sample as part of a frustrated caller going in and calling into a hotline, like for technical support. How would the technical support person de-escalate, right? Like that's the general goal of this scenario. And if you look here in the scenario description, I have been very specific about the requirements that this learner should follow in their response to the simulation that I've given them, right? So I gave a quick summary saying that it is a frustrated client, and I'm being very specific about doing the following things in this order, right? So I want them to acknowledge the client's frustrations, tell the client that you're here to help them out, share a personal experience, and thank them for their time. The reason that being specific in your scenario description is important is because, first of all, it gives your learners like a good foundation to actually do well for your scenario, right? Like by being as specific as possible and telling them like, hey, look, like these really are the things that we are looking to assess you on. The learner has the ability to really train and properly practice against the scenario that you're giving them. The other advantage for being very specific with your scenario description is that with Rehearsal's most recent feature, the retry with AI analysis gate, your scenario description is included in the retries AI analysis and feedback, the scenario feedback portion, and it is able to identify and recognize the things that you are specifically asking the learner to do and whether or not they've done it correctly. So I wanted to show you on the learner side, I have built a program called De-escalating frustrated clients. My first scenario that I gave the learners, it's the same video, right? So I only needed the scenario once, but I'm assessing them on two different things. The first thing I'm assessing them on is their communication skills, how to manage a frustrated client. And I give here a scenario for the learner to mimic and instructions. And then the learner can go in and respond, which I have also AI generated the response based on the same process I showed you guys earlier in the AI toolkit. I iterated through the text analogy rewriter. I used the transcripts that I'd also generated through the text analogy or text rewriter, created the audio transcript, generated the AI avatar. I even had, using the AI toolkit's steps writer, I had it build out for me this instruction underneath and was able to build the response, a sample response from the learners. And so as you can see here in this sample response, the learner went in and, followed the majority of these instructions. But our retry with AI analysis gate, assessed the learner, saying that they did a good job, acknowledging the client's frustrations, empathizing with their experience. You apologize for any inconvenience. However, you did not provide specific steps or a plan to rectify the situation or prevent similar issues in the future. That's a specific comment that our retry with AI analysis gate was able to pull out of the instructions, which is listed here. Offer steps to rectify the situation or plan to prevent similar issues in the future. And so because I was provided in this scenario the specific instruction for the learner and they missed it in their response, even though they had a good response, the retry with AI analysis gate will tell them, hey, look, we think you should retry this and we'll assess you on your second attempt. And so I went ahead and built a new scenario in the, again, like this would be your learner normally, but I did this for the sake of example. And I had the transcript actually cover all the pieces of the scenario which were required of the learner. And as you can see here, the AI retry with AI analysis gate was able to tell the learner, hey, look, like you actually did everything as requested from the scenario. It goes into specifics as to how it does this as well. So I don't know if any of you have any questions on fundamentally what I showed you here, but you're more than welcome to put them in the chat because I'll happily go in and explain in a little bit more detail any questions that you may have around the retry with AI analysis gate. And then what I did want to show you as well is, for those of you who are not familiar, all of these pieces are also AI generated. The key points is just a general identification of important aspects that the learner, added in their response. A summary is just a general summary of the response. If you're having, for example, a use case where there's numerous mentors trying to give feedback to a learner's response, it helps to have a summary so they, generally speaking, understand what they're looking at before they actually go in and watch all the videos. A call to action is a little bit more specific, I would say, to roles in which, having user engagement is really important. For example, elevator pitches or any sales enablement role really, or call center support, right? Because you want to have that your users are actually engaging the client and keeping the conversation going rather than having it end where the client first stepped to your door. And so call to action will identify any aspects that your learner was able to bring up that would bring a call to action to the client or the scenario that they're responding to. And you can see it here. This is a call to action where they brought up that we're going to schedule the technical support call. And all of these metrics are for your analysis and understanding. And I guess best practice around the AI transcript metrics is if you have a scenario where you're really training your learners on being like concise and clear on how they're talking to their clients, having good examples within the scenario, right? Like having a scenario which you can show learners, hey, look, like this is the type of talk time, pause time, and pace that we're expecting out of this conversation can also help them better achieve, success with the scenarios that you're giving them. You can see here that in the first instance, the scenario avatar had like a roughly the same talk time to pause time, but their pace was a little bit faster. And pace is average words per minute. So you can see here, sorry, this was slower than this one, which was a little bit faster. So in your use case, right, like being faster, being slower might be better, but it's important that you test out your own scenarios so that you can give good analysis on these metrics as well. Let's see if this is finished. So I refreshed the page, and as you can see now, the most recent video that I created is finished. And you can go in and preview the video.
Hi there. I've been hearing about your product, and I'm interested in learning more about how it works and how to implement it. Can you provide me with some additional information? How does it actually work? How would I go about implementing it within my organization?
Right, so that's our sample scenario. I'm going to go ahead and download it. I'm going to go back to Rehearsal. And in the use case that we were talking about, we can create the scenario. We're going to call it we're going to call it an introduction to product, right? So technical. And within the scenario itself, I created the title. For my own reference, I also added like what it is, what scale it is that we're assessing here. And we're going to upload the video that I just created. Actually, did I move it to the right place? And so a few things to note in the scenario editor. As you saw before I uploaded the video, there's also the opportunity for you to do a sample screen share, which is really valuable if you're trying to train like really anybody within your company on like where to find things, how to manage content, like what kind of behavior that you're expecting them to do in the background, right? Like a scenario doesn't just have to be a sample, right? This is the most fundamental way to use scenarios. It's just a real world simulation of something that your learners would respond to. We have so many clients that use it as well to just be like, hey, look, like, you know, here is an example of, you know, like someone's screen, a client's screen, and they're having, you know, issues connecting to the network. Like, I'm going to show you all these different parts of your screen, and you're going to tell me in your response, like, what it is that I was doing, how it is, how you think it is that it's broken, like identify the key areas in which, like, the network wasn't working, etc. Right? You're not just limited to videos. You really can integrate like entire presentations into this process as well. Which actually on that point as well, oh, and you have many options to give your learners if you are limited to just audio only for call centers, for example. And kind of what I was mentioning, if you did have a presentation that you wanted people to practice against, for example, for leadership development or, you know, greater, or even like a webinar or a conference like DevLearn, and you have people coming up on stage and you wanted them to practice, I mean, these are all real world examples. You can attach a presentation and your learner will literally have to go through each slide as they're talking in their recording. And so it really gives that like hands-on experience for the learners to really implement any simulation that you're trying to achieve. But so back to the introductions to product, right? Like for this use case, the user is just trying to find out, you know, like, hey, like, what is it that you do? Tell me more about it. How do I implement it in my company? And so being concise in your description is really important. And in this use case, what I'll do is I'll take the script that I had and go into the steps writer. And here, by the way, is an example of how I use the step writer as well, right? Like the learner is a product specialist. The goal is to train them on compliance. And then I give very specific instructions to the AI to say, hey, look, like these are all the things I expect you to do. And you can see here in a product compliance training scenario that it's able to break out, you know, like you are a product client specialist to be trained on compliance. Like I need you to understand this. I need you to focus on these areas, etc. Sorry, I got a little distracted by the chat. And so in this use case, right, like,
Hey, Nikita, we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A bubble. Can we take just a quick moment because I think it's really relevant to what you're doing right about now?
yes, I can.
The first one is, What information is the AI using to compare the response with? Is it just the text description for the video?
And you're using this in response to the retry with AI analysis gate.
I'm
So if it's,
pretty sure so.
yeah, so in the retry with AI analysis gate, our AI is able to take both the scenario video and the scenario description as context for its response to the learner. It is important to note that, you know, if you had more specific instructions in the scenario, that it will then also identify that. It's not just a requirement to do so in the description.
And the next one is, can the AI look for specific keywords or phrases as well?
Yes. So actually, yeah, let me see if I can, I'll just publish this real quick. I think I have an example which I can show. Yes, here. So I have an example. One of the de-escalation programs that I mentioned earlier is that I wanted a learner to follow specific steps. And one of the criteria I gave is to tell the client that you are here to help them out. And this is a very specific phrase that I'm looking for the learner to repeat in their response video. And so if you look in the transcript, you can see here that the learner does say, I'm here to help you out. And in the scenario feedback, it says that I did, right? Like I talked about the weather, which is reverse order. But I did, let me see on this one. Finally, client for the time, he followed the instructions well and addressed each point in the correct order. So in this case, I guess I didn't specifically show an example where I didn't say the word help you out. But that was a blocker for this scenario, and it is able to identify when a learner doesn't hit the exact phrase that I typed out in the scenario description. Were there any other questions, Kristen?
Well, this one I think we can address it now. The AI toolkit is pretty cool. How do I get access to it?
The AI toolkit, I agree, is super cool. It is included in your subscription with Studio. And so in terms of like specifics, if you already have Studio, you should have access to the AI toolkit. If you do not see it amongst your tiles or your apps, I would really recommend reaching out to your CSM or your AE at ELB to see, you know, is there any reason why it's not enabled? And if so, they can help you answer those questions from there.
Does this mean that if they received a free trial for something like Rehearsal, they would be able to also trial the AI toolkit as well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Also, thank you for those good questions. And so I guess for this use case, I mean, I can go out and keep showing you the responses, but maybe I've just noticed as well that we're starting to run out of time. And so to keep it a little bit more concise, like, I mean, I can show you here all of the various ways that it's able to answer, ways that it's able to identify learning journey steps, like really play around with these tools if you haven't already done so, because it really is like a huge time saver for getting you up and running in Rehearsal. But so I guess what I wanted to show you was for the introduction to product technical communication, we can be very specific here and say, and then publish this. If you didn't want to build the program first and you really are just trying to do, you know, directly an assignment, you can just go into the assignments tab and use the assignment builder, and it builds a Actually, but I did want to show you guys the new programs tab, so I'm going to go back and do it here anyway. So we updated, actually last week, we released the new programs pages. So also feel free to let me know if you have any feedback on those, if you've played with them already. And we're going to test out, like, say, and we're going to add the scenario that I just created, which would then enable you to attach to it a gate, which in this case, we're going to do the retry with AI analysis. And the new modal, as you can see, when I clicked on retry with AI, it automatically tells you which other scenarios you can pair this gate with. And so you can either choose to have the learner self-grade after a retry with AI analysis gate, or have mentors provide feedback. In this case, autocomplete is the default, which is why it's grayed out. You don't have to select it twice. And so when you go to configure the gates, these are all those various fields that I was showing you on the scenario side, which a learner will have access to. I'm just going to leave them all on for this use case. And then this is the scenario. It's uploaded. You can add more scenarios. For now, we're just going to leave it at 1. And then I'm going to attach, we're not going to do the program mentors. Actually, I'm going to show you guys program mentors. So I'm going to attach myself as the assigned program mentor. And then so it's published on the assignments page. Actually, I think I should be able to do it this way too. I'm trying to find, yep, there we go. So here you can just directly make an assignment and then call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it the program name and create. So we're going to start this one today. And the time will be, that's fine. We're adding a cohort. So I'm going to be a learner. And I'm going to assign, for those of you who didn't see this before, the program-specific mentors as the mentors for this assignment. So you don't have to manually add individual people. You can just always reuse the same program mentors by selecting this checkbox below. And once you're done selecting those users, I'm just going to turn off all my notifications because I don't need them. And I'm going to hit publish. And so now when we go to the learner side, refresh the page, we have this new say the word product in technical communications. And as a user, this is the learner experience right now. I get to watch the video, so I'll play it out for you guys.
Hi there. I've been hearing about your product and I'm interested in learning more about how it works and how to implement it. Can you provide me with some additional information? How does it actually work? How would I go about implementing it within my organization?
And then I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to record. It might not work. Oh, it's using the wrong one. Apologies. There we go. Awesome. Okay, there we are. So I'm going to start the recording. And I just realized my audio isn't being picked up. And that's probably because I'm using my microphone right now. Let's see if this works. There we go. Okay, awesome. So the learner, as a learner, I would go in and then start the recording. Hello, and thank you for giving us a call. I would love to explain to you how our product works. Thank you for your time.
Hello, and thank you for giving us a call. I would.
And then, as you can see, the learner's response is being uploaded. The AI analysis was processing. And as you can see here, it says, based on the transcript, your response is in line with the scenario instructions, which is that I mentioned the word product in your response. So that was just an example to one of the questions that got brought up, and I hope that that answers your question, because you can be insanely specific with the new Retry with AI Gate, and it will help you have your learners iterate through and literally practice as many times as they feel comfortable until they're ready for a mentor to go in and do assessment. So this hopefully should help also, relieve some mentor burden and really only have mentors have to go in when the learner is really confident about their responses. And so just so that you guys also know, like as a learner, I can choose to retry my response based on the feedback that I got, or I can confirm it. And in this case, I'm going to confirm it so that it gets sent to the mentor. We are like almost out of time. So I did want to take the last 8 minutes to finish answering any questions on this.
We do have 2 questions right now waiting in the breeze, Nikita. One is ELB compatible with most LMSs in order to file results, for example, to monitor compliancy of the learner?
Okay, so if I understand correctly, in terms of being compatible with LMSs, you're referring to the data side of this. And the answer is, at least for most ELB products, and especially for Rehearsal, we are extremely compatible with LMSs and being able to provide your LMS with appropriate data. We offer what we refer to as the public API, which enables you to go and integrate those data sets with whatever LMS that you're looking to use for learner assessment.
Would this also be in relation to SCORM compatibility, Nikita?
So Rehearsal is not a SCORM-based product. We do have other products in ELB that are SCORM wrapped, such as the Training Arcade and Scenario VR and MicroBuilder. So those would be in relation to SCORM wrapper, yes.
Okay. Now we have another one. These trainings that are created will be live on demand, but will the mentors be responding live, or is it on demand as well?
So everything that you see here is on demand. That's the beauty of Rehearsal. I can go in and answer my scenario assignment at any point, right? As a learner, I can go in and do it now, or I could have done it, like the last day, October 31st, an hour before the assignment was due. That's up to the learner. And then when the learners do have information and they do submit this response, our system will notify any mentors that you have assigned to that assignment, saying that the learner did respond. And so asynchronously, which is what I mean that it can happen at any point, right, on demand, not live. A mentor can go in and look at their review tab on the admin side, and they can see all of the learner responses waiting for them. So in this use case that I just showed, because it was an autocomplete, it wrote here as complete. If instead that was a mentor review assignment, I think I have an example of a mentor review, or this is a self-grade, right? But as a mentor, I can go in and say like, okay, yes, this learner did a good job, or this learner didn't do a good job. Here we go. So here's an example of mentor review. So if I went in and deleted this, it would be as if I never submitted the mentor review. And so then as a mentor, I can go in and say, okay, for this assignment, frustrated caller, and we're looking at communication skills. These were all the scenario instructions. This was the actual scenario the learner got to see. This is the learner's first response. All of the key points, summary, call to action that the learner gets to see is visible here as well. Here is the system's review, which is the retry with AI analysis gate. And it tells the mentor, right, that they were asked to try the response again. And then here you can see the learner chose to retry their response. And with the new feedback, right, the learner decided to submit. And now as a mentor, it's my turn to say, okay, do I want to have them go in and try again, which again is asynchronous, it's not live. Or I can go in at my own time and submit my final review of the learner's response, which could either be me recording a video or uploading content, or just writing a note and saying like, hey, you did a good job. And I can give them a grade. And now, because I submitted this mentor review, the learner at their own leisure can go in and see that feedback here. It's this one. No, it's not this one. This one. I hope that answers your question.
And I think that's all we have for questions today.
Awesome.
Anything else? Go for it.
The only thing I guess that I would mention a little bit more, right, regarding, because when I'm looking back at my slides, right, generating and automating is kind of what I showed you here. It's generating content for rehearsal and automating some of the mentor processes by using the retry with AI analysis gate. The last thing that I had listed on that slide was the reporting aspect of it, right? So being able to use this data in your analysis and reporting of learners is what's important in general to be comprehensive about your use of rehearsal. And so maybe another webinar we can talk about how to do proper reporting and integrations.
Ooh, that sounds like a great topic to me. And we have about 2 more minutes left, so it's probably a good time for us to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Nikita, for your time today. We really appreciate it. We do have an exit poll for you, a nice little survey if you would like another demo of Rehearsal, or if you'd like a free trial, or if you're interested in the AI toolkit. So please fill out that survey after everything is all said and done. And everybody have a fantastic day. Thanks so much.